Ethan Cole had everything a man could ever want. At just 35, he owned 3 luxury cars, a mansion that glittered at night like a palace, and a thriving business empire. People admired him, envied him, and some even feared him. Wherever he walked, respect followed. But there was one flaw in Ethan's character: pride. He believed his success was entirely his own doing, forgetting the sacrifices of his late father, who had built the foundation of the business. Ethan's employees worked day and night, yet he dismissed their efforts as insignificant. When his mother reminded him to stay humble, he would laugh and say, "Money is respect, Mom. As long as I have it, people will never leave me." For years, his arrogance only grew. He threw grand parties, spent recklessly, and mocked those who had less. Friends surrounded him, but they were the kind who loved his wealth more than his company. Then, one stormy evening, everything changed. Ethan received a phone call. A major deal he had invested nearly all his funds into had collapsed. Billions were gone in a single night. At first, he dismissed it, thinking he could recover quickly. But within weeks, creditors came knocking, banks demanded repayment, and lawsuits piled up. One by one, his assets vanished. His cars were repossessed. His mansion was auctioned. The same friends who used to drink champagne at his table stopped answering his calls. Even the people he had once treated generously turned their backs. Within a year, Ethan Cole, the man who once ruled boardrooms, was living in a small rented room with barely enough money to eat. The greatest pain wasn't poverty itself, it was the humiliation. He walked down the same streets where people once greeted him with admiration. Now, those same faces avoided eye contact or whispered behind his back. For months, Ethan struggled to find work. Employers recognized his name but refused to hire him, believing he was responsible for the collapse of his own empire. At night, he sat in silence, remembering his mother's words. "Stay humble, Ethan. Money can vanish, but respect earned through kindness lasts forever." One chilly morning, Ethan wandered into a local diner. With only a few coins in his pocket, he asked the owner if he could wash dishes in exchange for breakfast. The owner, an older man named Mr. Harris, agreed. For the first time in his life, Ethan worked a job he once would have ridiculed. He scrubbed plates, cleaned tables, and mopped floors. Every muscle ached, but for the first time in years, his pride softened. Mr. Harris noticed his sincerity and began giving him small payments. Weeks turned into months. Slowly, Ethan learned the value of humility, patience, and hard work. He made friends with ordinary people, truck drivers, waitresses, mechanics, who respected him not for his past wealth, but for his present effort. One evening, after closing the diner, Mr. Harris sat with him and said, "You know, Ethan, life has strange ways of teaching us lessons. Some learn when they rise, others when they fall. But the ones who truly grow are those who rise again after the fall, this time wiser." Those words struck deep. Ethan realized that losing everything was not a curse. It was a chance to rebuild himself, not as a rich man, but as a better man. With the little savings from his work, he started helping at a local shelter, serving food to the homeless. Many were shocked to see the once famous Ethan Cole standing beside them, offering meals with a smile. But instead of shame, Ethan felt peace. Months later, opportunity knocked in an unexpected way. One of the shelter volunteers turned out to be a former business associate. Unlike others, this man respected Ethan's new humility and offered him a position in his small company. Ethan accepted, not as a CEO, but as a manager. Years passed. Ethan rebuilt his life step by step, not in the shadow of arrogance, but in the light of gratitude. He never became as wealthy as before, but he gained something far greater: true respect. One day, while walking past a mirror in his modest apartment, Ethan smiled at his reflection. The man staring back was no longer the arrogant billionaire who thought money ruled the world. He was a man who had tasted both riches and poverty, pride and humility, and had finally learned the real meaning of wealth. Ethan whispered to himself, "I was rich once and thought I had everything. I became poor and thought I had nothing. But now I know. True richness is in kindness, humility, and the people who stand with you when the money is gone." And with that, Ethan stepped into his new life, not as the richest man in town, but as the wisest one.